Hello interwebs! It's Scott from Admiralty Entertainment here, and it is toy tour time again. Bad singing, sorry. So this is my DC New 52 shelf, which we'll be taking a little bit of a toy tour at. Because of the amount of characters that are in here, and the fact that I am actually going to be swapping these guys out for other toys, this will be sort of like a toy tour by disassembly. There's kind of too many figures in there to actually see them in just one go here terribly easily anyway. So we're sort of like taking them out layer by layer, taking a look and having a bit of a chat about some of these guys as we go. So the New 52 was a 2011 DC Comics initiative where they basically rebooted their entire comics universe, similar to how they did after Crisis on Infinite Earths. This one happened after the Flashpoint miniseries, which was kind of like the Age of Apocalypse was for X-Men, only at the end of the storyline they completely changed the entire universe around them. So we sort of relaunched everything, and some things changed and some things didn't. So like Superman got this whole new outfit and look, and so did Wonder Woman, but Batman was pretty similar to what he was doing beforehand. Likewise, Green Lantern, pretty much all his storylines stayed in place, whereas some other characters had their continuities rebooted, some of them didn't. It was kind of a confusing mess. Some of what came out of the New 52 was okay. A lot of it was not quite so fantastic, and that kind of led to the DC Rebirth initiative a little while ago, which sort of tried to bring back some of the stuff which they'd lost. But yeah, it was an interesting idea. I don't mind them rebooting the universe, but it just would have been nice to do it a little bit more sensibly and organised and sort of long-term planning for it, sort of thing, if you have that opportunity. But that didn't happen. But we do get some pretty cool action figures out of it, based on some of the new designs. Most of the designs for characters were done by Jim Lee and I believe Cully Hamner as well. But the minute that I saw the Superman with all the lines all over his Kryptonian armor, I knew that this was going to be a temporary thing as much as Superman Red, Superman Blue, or Death of Superman were, because no artist is going to want to have to draw all those lines all the time. Likewise with Batman, lots of plates and lines in all his outfit. I could tell that they might be in vogue for a little while, but eventually the artists would go, nah, can I just do away without drawing all those lines? I'll do a few less lines, and we end up back on basically the good old regular Batman that we've always known. Wonder Woman, of course, had the pants controversy. This version of Wonder Woman does not have pants. She has her underoos sort of thing, but bare legs. And there was a promo art for Justice League which had her with actual pant legs. Ooh, big finger there. Had actual pant legs shown in the art, but then when the comic came out, she did not. And there was a bit of a controversy there for a while in terms of Pantsgate almost. But yeah, I personally like the pants design. I thought that was good, and it was an interesting way to delineate her from the old Wonder Woman, especially how they'd gone for this whole red, blue, and silver, rather than the red, blue, and gold motif that Wonder Woman has traditionally had previously. Of course, they also made the change in Wonder Woman's continuity in that she was just another offspring of Zeus. So Zeus and Hippolyta had Diana rather than Diana being a clay statue brought to life, which I always thought was a much more interesting story. It played to classical mythology, more so than just another demigod, which there's tons of demigods in classical mythology, of course, but it made her a little bit more interesting, a little different. But that run got pretty good reviews and all that sort of thing. It seemed to be largely just sort of accepted from here on out. But yeah, I like the clay statue brought to life. It had some cool storyline potentials and all that sort of thing. But yeah, so we probably really should start with the S-Man himself, the big blue boy. Blah, 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 blah.
You make me tongue-tied, whenever you are near me.
Tongue-tied. The big blue Boy Scout, as he was in the New 52, looking a lot sort of younger than he had previously. Of course, this version of Superman was not married to Lois Lane, which the previous continuity version had been, and had been raising a child together, which was actually General Zod's child for a while there, and a very good storyline I liked. But then, of course, they rebooted the universe, and this was younger, hipper, wearing armor. Kind of goes against the whole point of Superman to me, but the design itself, interesting. I actually don't mind the collars, which was a very Jim Lee sort of thing, was spread throughout a lot of the New 52 designs. But as I say, the whole armor idea, I don't know. Getting rid of the underoos, that was a big thing at the time. And honestly, I don't mind it without the red underpants, but having the red belt certainly is a step towards trying to keep some of that coloration there. It needs something. The movie version that we saw in the DCEU, which didn't have anything there, it was just a blue bodysuit. And I think it was the actual Rebirth outfit itself was extremely boring, not having that pop of colour in the midsection there. So at least having the red belt, that kind of works. So I didn't mind Superman's outfit. Next to him, of course, is Supergirl, who... Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with that one. For me, a lot of people go on about the red crotch. I think it doesn't look good. But I don't understand why you wear boots that have no knees in them. That makes very little to no sense to me. But yeah, and also they did keep this whole yellow trim thing, which had kind of become part of the Michael Turner design of Supergirl from the Batman Batman series, where she was reintroduced to the post-crisis continuity as proper Kara Zor-El, rather than Matrix version, which we'd had previous to that, which I personally liked perfectly fine. But yeah, this figure, I worry about those eyes. She doesn't look happy with those eyes. That's scary eyes. But yeah, that was a later figure, and so they were kind of experimenting with a bit more articulation. You can see that the legs do actually have more of a ball joint there, rather than the traditional DC collectibles, just straight in and out. So yeah, that was cool at least, and we were also seeing some of these metallics being used in there. I don't miss those old ankle hinges though. Thank goodness we've moved on from those with Marvel Legends and the like. And of course you've also got Superboy here, in his Teen Titans sort of look here. If the camera can just focus a little bit to not quite wash out his face so much. I know that this design was not supposed to be his final design. It was just sort of like his incubation suit or something like that, because again they rebooted the character, ignoring all the sort of story developments that had in the character since his introduction to the Death of Superman, because that was all post-Crisis, pre-Flashpoint. So the New 52 one was completely different again. But this design is interesting. I don't know if it's quite a Superman type thing, but it's very interesting. And I do remember that when I think it was Man of Steel, it's either Man of Steel or Batman v Superman came out, they did in the basic Mattel line a Superman which is wearing a very similar sort of design, with the the black bodysuit and red piping and designs on it, which actually looked pretty cool. So yeah, I didn't really follow much of the Teen Titans after like the first issue or so to be able to take a look at it, see what was going on. But yeah, that as a figure design, didn't mind it. Something different. Of course, we've spoken about Wonder Woman a little bit here. Interesting the way they went with all these sculpted stripes, and I've never understood why they had these stars on the bodice area there, but they weren't coloured at all. And I know that's in the design as well of the comic, but it just seems so weird to have that design there but not have it coloured in. And I know that they've gone back to the couple of white stars, which is similar to how John Byrne did it in his post-Crisis run. But yeah, I don't hate this design. It was certainly a departure, going to that silver accents rather than gold, but at least it kind of unified it a little bit, as opposed to having some gold, some silver, and that sort of thing. So that was interesting enough. Batman, of course, because he is such a strong seller in all the storylines, most of his continuity just remained as was, which was kind of a weird thing. But yeah, they did sort of Dark Knight-anize his outfit, because the Dark Knight movie had been out recently, and so they're taking very much that Christopher Nolan sort of approach to it, with lots of sculpted plates and armour, and if we focus a little bit, yeah, we can see that a little bit more. Most of these figures in here, by the way, are of course DC Collectibles / DC Direct figures. I think they're just all DC Collectible by that stage. So a lot of them came from, there was a Justice League 7-pack which had all the major characters, where I got a lot of those main guys from. And some of them which just sort of spilled out after that. Because, as I say, I wasn't all that particularly invested in the comics themselves. But yeah, I mean, Batman is hard to go wrong with. And his design, I think, was pretty cool. I'm a little bit over that bat, though. The whole just, black bat on grey. I wouldn't mind seeing the oval return myself, but that's just me. We do, of course, have Barbara Gordon back as Batgirl, which, I'm glad to see her back and walking and all that sort of thing. I'm happy for the character, but I really liked Oracle. I think as Oracle, she had a lot more character development than she ever did as Batgirl. I know they've done a lot of things to her since then, which have probably done a lot to sort of make up for that. But yeah, I miss Oracle still. I know that they've changed the character even more in terms of made her younger, euthanized her or something like that. Not euthanized, but euthanized. And so now she's the sort of Batgirl Brandside sort of look, as opposed to this heavily armoured outfit, which she had at the beginning of the New 52. Which, yeah, it's perfectly fine, but again, I really prefer Oracle. I think she was so much more interesting in Birds of Prey and that era of post-crisis Batman, where you had the Batman family of Tim Drake, Robin, Nightwing, and Oracle, and that sort of team for me really worked nicely. But this is an interesting figure. It's a good one, and I certainly don't mind all the detail that they have put into the figure here. And very nice face, very nice work on the eyes, I think. But yeah, not my favourite era of Batgirl. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at that front row, let's take these guys out and see who's next. Of course, next we have the man whose fault all this is, Barry Allen as the Flash. The words "damn it, Barry" kind of come into play here. It was nice to see Barry return in Flash Rebirth, but for me, Wally West is my Flash. I understand kind of why they went with Barry, because he does have the sort of CSI type background, which was so very much in vogue at the time, and certainly did become the basis for an interesting TV series. I can see how that would translate to a TV series easily in terms of it's CSI with superheroes, hey. But for me, Wally West is my Flash. He was the one I found most interesting, and the whole legacy behind the character I think worked really well. And again, New 52 Flash with all these lines drawn all over him, especially for such a fast character that the artist would have to draw just that kinetic movement all the time. I'm not surprised that would eventually go the way of the dodo. I don't know how much they actually still have that sort of thing at the moment, but yeah, I mean it seems pointless and unnecessary to me to have that much design detail on the Flash, especially when he's all about movement, and as soon as you have all those seams and lines and everything, you kind of go, well, is that slowing him down? Is that armoured or something? It doesn't make sense to me. Kind of like the Justice League movie version, which was all plates and wires and stuff. He's supposed to be outspeed, fast, agile, all that sort of thing. Of course, next to him we do have Hal Jordan, which for me, I didn't mind Hal. Again, I liked Kyle Rayner, especially how he was characterized in that Grant Morrison era JLA as sort of the young guy, and being the only Green Lantern sort of thing. But the return of the Lantern Corps was kind of cool, and the sort of rebirth of Hal Jordan was pretty cool. So I didn't mind that, and his storylines survived the New 52 pretty well. Most of his costume had already been redesigned relatively recently, so I think pretty much the only things they did to him was add in some of this shoulder piping sort of weird stuff. It's possible that he had the collar added as well, but that's a good costume, and I like that one. So I had no problem with adding that figure to my collection, especially as he's part of this whole Justice League multi-pack, which kicked off my New 52 collection anyway. You do have Huntress here, who, I know they went back to the Earth 2 origin of her here, and that she's supposed to be Batman and Catwoman's daughter, and from Earth 2 rather than the main Earth, which everything happens on. I personally, I'm not a fan of that storyline. I prefer her being Helena Bertinelli, because, you know, I came from that post-crisis Batman era. For me, you know, that works as more interesting. She's the wild card, you know, former crime boss's daughter sort of thing. That's more interesting to me rather than she's Batman and Catwoman's daughter. Yeah, not my favourite. But I do have to say, this design worked pretty darn well. It takes a lot of those classic Huntress designs and, you know, works with them nicely. Certainly better than the Jim Lee Hush version did, which I thought was really stupid. It's the one which had the little belly cutout window, which seemed just stupid. So this version, I think, works pretty nicely. I'm still a fan of her sort of Birds of Prey era outfit myself, but that's not a bad update there. Now, coming back over this way, we do have Arthur Curry, Aquaman himself. Again, this was an interesting slight tweaking of the design. I do like the way that the belt became angular there. That was quite nice. And the fact that he's got this chain to hold his trident, I thought was a pretty cool thing, especially for the toy where it is actually, you know, a real chain. Again, we've got the collar, which, you know, I like. You know, we learned this from Series 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation, that you need to have a good collar on your outfits, and so I don't mind, you know, that in the New 52 here, but we do have him with his, you know, Wolverine sideburns, which I thought was always interesting, and the necklaces, which, you know, I have no problem with. That's cool. Of course, now he's more famous as Jason Momoa, so he's gone the whole bearded, savage, you know, tough guy sort of thing, which is, oops, thing out of the way, sorry, which is very interesting, very different from the classic look, which is kind of a weird thing, because this was very much a return to the classic look, after he'd been his JLA era, you know, bearded and hook-handed and all that sort of guy. You will see a mirror back there. That mirror is actually from the Justice League Throne of Atlantis direct-to-video animated thing. I like Mera as a character, and the idea that, you know, she's Aquaman's, you know, lady is very nice, but they never brought out a New 52 version of her. So when that movie came out, I thought, oh well, I'll try that, and it kind of fits okay. Not as detailed as most of the other New 52 figures are, but you know, it's something a little bit different, especially given that the colours are slightly different from her traditional, just, you know, green scaled costume. We do have Zatanna, of course. I am a mark for Zatanna. Gotta love a powerful magician. And yeah, again, New 52 outfit is an interesting blend of some of her classical outfits. You do have the fishnets, and an outfit which is, you know, reminiscent of that classical stage magician sort of outfit. But then you've also got the cape, which is kind of like her Justice League era, you know, caped costume, which was terrible. But this one actually works out okay. It's an interesting blend of everything. So yeah, it's not bad, and, you know, I don't mind any excuse to get another Zatanna figure. You can also see back there Stargirl. Again, they went with longer pants on her there rather than her sort of bike shorts that she previously had. It kind of feels like they aged the character up a bit there, which, you know, it's not a bad thing, but I kind of enjoyed her when she first came in as, you know, just being this young, enthusiastic, vibrant character. But yeah, it was nice to see another version of her covering things slightly differently. Now, looking at Wonder Girl, now, as I understand it, this is a character that they significantly changed in the New 52. You know, I really enjoyed Cassie from the Young Justice era of the post-crisis comics. I kind of, you know, not been following, but saw some of the development her character had in the Wonder Woman series post-crisis as well, which I thought was a really interesting, you know, development of the character. But then they kind of went in completely different directions for the New 52 era, and yeah, interesting from what I read. This figure I only really picked up because it was cheap. It's an interesting design. Yeah, maybe that would have worked a bit better for a Donna Troyer sort of figure, with the sparklies all inside and everything like that. Certainly comes across interesting. But yeah, for the character itself, I honestly didn't follow very much, so can't really speak too much on her in that regard. However, we do have some other characters here. We have Shazam. He fully embraced his Shazamness. Yeah, I think this was the first time that they really sort of ditched the whole Captain Marvel name and all that lot. They kind of realised that they were fighting a losing battle there, given that they couldn't ever have the comic actually called Captain Marvel, and being DC, trying to mention Marvel at all, problems. So they just went with Shazam, and now of course this year, being 2019, the Shazam movie will be coming out shortly. So we'll see if the rest of the world sort of embraces that as well. But yeah, again, interesting costume design here. Some of the weird sort of splashes of metallic and everything around there. You can see how that certainly influenced the movie costume and all that lot. A little bit annoying with that hood. Never looked right with the hood for me. You'd think that they would have done it with two options, that you could have it up or down. Especially how he primarily known for having the hood down, but on this figure it was up, and you just had to deal with it. One of the biggest casualties I always thought of in the 52 was poor old Oliver Queen, where they made him young. I think it was around that sort of time that they're in development, at least for the Arrow TV series, and presumably they went, oh well, the TV series will have a young person in it, so we want to euthanize the character again. And it didn't work. They turned him into ironically what would eventually become sort of the Arrow TV version, where he's out in the field and he's got the support team behind him and all that, which feels more like Birds of Prey rather than the Green Arrow did to me. But yeah, it was an interesting design, but yeah, it felt like he was a kid, and that's not who I think that Green Arrow really should be. He should be that sort of grizzled old guy that you kind of see in like Justice League Unlimited and all that sort of thing. That's that adds a different flavour to the DC universe, I think, and interesting design certainly, but I prefer my classic superpowers era sort of version of Green Arrow myself. So yeah, it was an interesting pickup in terms of the figure, and some nice little green shades that they did there with the metallics and all that sort of thing. But yeah, just a cheap pickup there. Speaking of cheap pickups, I would not have got this katana if I had not been able to get that cheap. It actually came in a 2-pack with a redo of the Wonder Woman from the Justice League line there. This one is actually sold separately, which is part of the reason that it was just cheap. It's an interesting design. Yeah, it's striking. It looks more like a Batman black and white, or Harley Quinn black, white, and red statue sort of thing, rather than an actual character design. But that's apparently what her design was in the New 52. It's very weird, interesting, but weird certainly. Going back this way, we're heading back into Batman territory, and you do of course have Tim Drake as Red Robin. Again, he was primarily in the Teen Titans book at this stage, and there was this whole weird thing that because of continuity changes, we weren't certain whether he'd actually ever been Robin, or if he'd been Red Robin the whole time, or what was going on here. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this costume design, especially those big wings. With this toy especially, they're big plastic things, and you can't, it's not a cape as such, it's just these big plastic things stick out there. Lots of pouches and everything, which was a very, New 52 sort of thing, because they were very much harkening back to some of those 90s designs through all of the art teams that they were bringing in, and some of the writers and that sort of thing. You can kind of see some of the designs that they had there from Kingdom Come, which is where Red Robin kind of initially appeared. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this look. I mean, I'm a big fan of the classic Tim Drake look, which I thought was Robin modernized sufficiently. And when they took the Robin identity away from him, it all just kind of went weird. But it's still interesting to have him as a different look here, and follow the attempts at evolution for the Tim Drake character. Speaking of evolution, here is Nightwing, the original Robin, Dick Grayson, in his New 52 era thing, where they very notably swapped out the blue in his costume for red, which, it's interesting. It works okay. It certainly ties him more into the Robin identity than the blue does. I'm personally a big fan of the blue. That classic Nightwing look, which he's sort of gone back to now in the post-Rebirth era, is very, very cool, and it kind of ties into Batman as well, with that classic blue colour in Batman's costume, whereas this red does tie a lot more back into the Robin identity. Still very cool though. It's an interesting alternate look. And when that came out, I thought, okay, it's weird, it's different, but you know, I don't hate it. Again, lots of little armor lines and everything like that. Very much what they were doing at the time. But yeah, interesting look for Dick, and I don't mind it. Speaking of former Robins, here is Jason Todd as the Red Hood in his outfit from Red Hood and the Outlaws, where he'd sort of gone for this jacket and armoured vest and a red bat and this red helmet sort of look. The figure itself's got these weird blade things on the forearms, which some of them I've taken off, some of them I haven't. And of course the guns, because that's what he uses. Yeah, I'm still not entirely convinced that bringing Jason back was a good thing. Certainly not necessary, but you know, it's happened, so yeah, let's make use of it. But yeah, it was interesting to finally be able to get a figure of him in his Red Hood outfit. Still waiting on a decent version, you know, because this version, you know, I'm not super comfortable using that as a default version of him. I do have the Arkham games version, which I think is a lot better. And there is supposed to be a Mattel multiverse version coming out. Whether we get that before their line ends or not, I don't know. But yeah, we do have a ex-Robin in there. So he's an interesting addition, certainly. And we'd have Poison Ivy. Now, they did significantly change her costume from the pre-Flashpoint era into this whole black with bright bits of green on it sort of thing. Interesting. I don't know that they really knew what they were doing with the character, and she seems to have semi-transitioned to a semi-heroic sort of state, primarily due to her involvement with Harley Quinn more than anything else. So yeah, it's interesting. I like Pamela Isley. I've liked her since I first saw her in the Batman animated series, which was my first exposure to the character. So yeah, it's been interesting to see how they change bits and pieces of her. This design certainly interesting, certainly striking, having the black with the bright green. So yeah, a bunch of them for trying something new there. And here we are down to the final row. Of course, we have Black Adam back there. I quite like this figure of Black Adam, quite frankly. He's a good counterpart to Shazam, of course. But just some of the nice additional extras, like the tattered edges of the cape. I thought that was quite a good touch. And of course, he does have his hood in a down-ish manner, so you can actually see the rest of the face and everything like that, which I think is particularly nice. We do have Starfire from the Red Hood and the Outlaws line. Yeah, they did a number on Starfire in the New 52, at least initially. I think they did a lot of recovery work afterwards to sort of bring her back around again. But yeah, the hair trail on this one was quite nice, with the whole sort of you know, fiery, semi-translucent sort of plastic is quite good. You'll notice that I do have her on a display stand because she is terrible at standing up. But you know, whatever, it works. But yeah, the sculpting is very nice on this one. Good you know, orange skin tone plastic there. So it's quite a nice figure overall. I think the costume design, I think, yeah, a bit iffy. And certainly they didn't do any figures of the later, more modest sort of Teen Titans animated series inspired outfit. But yeah, it's always nice to have a Starfire. Next to her, you'll see Hawkman. Now, Hawkman's a bit of an odd duck in this one, because he is actually a DC Unlimited figure, the very short-lived line that lived in between DC Universe Classics and their Signature collections from Meta Collector, and the DC Multiverse line, which sort of came out a little bit later on. So he's actually a little bit smaller than pretty much everybody else, but it's kind of okay. It's an interesting, you know, slight redesign, not huge redesign, but they did go with sort of, you know, more chunky armoured boots and funky, you know, talons and that sort of thing. And oh, look at him, he's just so angry. So angry. He's never got over the fact that it was Hawkgirl, not him, the Justice League cartoon. Anyway, yeah, pretty cool figure. A lot of the stuff is, you know, just sort of basic buck sort of thing. But those wings are very nice. You cannot fault the
attention to detail, and also the paintwork on those wings is pretty impressive actually for a mass market sort of figure. So yeah, he's kind of cool. We do have Cyborg here. Again, he's from that Justice League 7-pack. So this is his sort of initial New 52 look, which is sort of the armoured tank sort of look. Big, chunky. Not bad. I certainly understand why they decided to put him into the Justice League. I don't know if I quite agree with the idea of having him there at the inception, because I really liked him. The idea of him rising up through the Teen Titans, but they did such a number on the Teen Titans in the New 52 that probably doesn't really matter very much anyway. And of course they did also redesign him later on to be a bit more slimmer and sleeker, so he wasn't quite the tank that he is in this instance. But again, it's a pretty nice sort of figure. I do quite like it. It's a very sort of classic Cyborg head, and the rest of it is just sort of like bulked up. But he's quite cool. Pandora back here, which was supposed to be the cause of this whole problem, given that she appeared in the first issue of every single New 52 #1 when it first started, and she also appeared to Flash at the end of Flashpoint saying, "Oh, this is what's happened." I never really quite understood what her whole thing was. She was semi-villain, semi-hero, anti-hero, who knows? And she later became part of this Trinity of Sin or something like that. I just liked the action figure design, sort of like a Red Shadow sort of thing, a bit Crimson Avenger. I don't know if they ever took the opportunity to go, hey, look, we've given her these design marks. Let's make her involved with the coda from Wildcats or something like that. Given that Wildcats got included in with the rest of Wildstorm in the New 52. But yeah, I just liked the design. It's a cool semi-pulpy sort of design. So I really never followed the character terribly much after that, but the action figure I thought was just cool, so she's a nice addition there. And we also have Deathstroke, who kind of became one of the most needlessly armoured characters in existence. Sure, he's always had armour of one form or another, but this one just seems big and clunky and not Deathstrokey for my taste personally. But it's an interesting design, and again, it was a cheap action figure, so hey, why not pad things out a little bit. But yeah, this sword is supposed to stick onto his back. You can see there's a little indentation in the base there. It never sticks on for me. You'll put it on, and then 5 minutes later, it's fallen off, which is a pain. But yeah, I mean, I'm also a little bit light on supervillains for the New 52, so it's kind of good to have him in there to be able to help out, even though he's as much a hero as a villain these days. But yeah, so that's the end of this little New 52 tour. Thanks for sticking with us right the way through, or having skipped to the end if you're so inclined. Yeah, so these guys are mostly going into storage, and we'll put some new things out here, and maybe once that's done we'll give you a new toy tour. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you again next time on Admiralty Entertainment.